I firmly believe that truckers are extremely lucky people. Basically because every month I get like 4 or 5 stories where truckers have won the lottery in some capacity, be it, scratch-off tickets, which, by the way, I have never won on a scratch-off ticket, or, they're actually winning like, substantial sums in the lottery. This particular guy was from Texas. He had traveled to Maryland, had purchased some Powerball tickets, wound up matching 4 of the white balls and the Powerball, and that nets you $50K.
And we're back with another edition of Roses and Razzberries. S.J. Munoz, Ryan Witkowski, Tyson Fisher here again, doing the 3-man weave style. Ryan, that's something you coined here, and we're gonna stick with it because
give and go.
Yeah, it seems about right. But just to get going here, like we always do, if you do have an idea for a rose or a raspberry, we'll accept either, or even maybe a mixed bag. Sometime we have those. Just send those to roses@landlinemag.com. And looking, no spoilers here, but just looking ahead, it looks like you two gentlemen might have been in a pretty good mood here.
I was in a great mood. I'm all roses today.
Seems like we have a little bit heavy on the rose side, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and get started here. Tyson, you got the first one, so we'll let you get going with those roses here.
Sure, yeah. So I'm going to give roses to a former truck driver named Toby Kemp for his charity fundraising effort called Trucking for a Cure Tennessee. And that supports truckers, police officers, and members of the military, so veterans and active duty. So what he does is that he raises money for charities like Rest Stop Ministries is one of them, which a lot of people listening are probably familiar with, but also for a charity called Voices for Victims, and a Special Forces Charitable Trust, which supports Green Berets and their families.
He's kind of got all the bases covered here. He
really does, yeah. And but it also includes scholarships for truckers, police officers, and military children. So he actually does his own little fundraising for his own efforts. But yeah, it's grown exponentially. So like 7 years ago, he raised about $4,500. But last year he raised like $500,000. So
I'm sorry. Why are you 7 years? He's had that growth.
That's pretty amazing.
Good job,
just that.
man.
I mean.
So yeah, no, it's excellent. And so and the cool thing is, so like Kemp's his own personal story is one that at least kind of used to define the American trucker. So he was, raised in a large family, didn't have a lot of money growing up. He dropped out of high school, joined the workforce, and then that's when he found trucking. And so did trucking, did it for like 30 years, and then he ended up making a pretty good living as a truck driver. So, that has always been the appeal to trucking. It has been a working class job with a middle class income that's accessible to anyone, regardless of their background. So, I think that partially explains why the trucking community is such a charitable bunch. You have a lot of drivers who come from nothing. They make a pretty good chunk of change from trucking, and then they just give back, knowing what it's like to struggle. And so, Toby Kemp kind of defines that spirit of the trucker.
I always thought it was cool, too, about truckers, because you're right, they are a really charitable bunch. And when you're asking for people to do things for charity, not only are you asking for their dollars, but you're asking for their time, too.
Sure.
And this is an industry where time is money. And these guys, you're giving basically double. You're giving your money and you're giving your time to really advance these kinds of causes. And it's really impressive how, you're right, there seems to be some connection to trucking and almost every charity imaginable.
Yeah, it's insane. And again, I think that just comes from that humble background. You come from that humble background, I think you're more susceptible to giving your time and money. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of just a little more incredible too. The fact that in the industry, and you really have to work hard to get to this level and be successful and really be profitable. And it'd be easy just to be like, I did it myself. Why should I help? But it's basically the exact opposite, where you understand how hard it is to get there and you're willing to give back. So
well, and let's be honest too, given the last several years, it hasn't exactly been all pardon the pun, roses for the industry in terms of making money. And so to see this continue to grow like that, it really is impressive. It's kind of defying some of those odds.
Well, the next topic, as a whole, is probably not such a good thing, but you were able to put your positive spin on it here, Ryan, and find some roses in the midst of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So cargo theft has been something that obviously I cover, and and it's been a big hot button issue in the industry because it has been on just a meteoric rise over the last couple of years. And, when I've talked to people at, Overhaul or CargoNet, folks that cover the industry and cover those cargo theft losses, like it has been year after year after year for the last 4 or 5 years have been setting new records, breaking new records. Wow. And so finally lawmakers are really starting to take note and say, hey, we need to step in and figure out how to do something about it. So roses to the cargo theft bill, the Safeguarding Our Supply Chains Act, picking up a 13th co-sponsor now. That bill was introduced back in June by David Valadeo, the representative from California. And that bipartisan bill basically is aiming to improve coordination between the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI with the hope of slowing that rate of cargo theft in our country. And the idea behind it is that better communication from a federal level to state and local law enforcement is going to be able to let people identify when there's really, maybe a cargo theft ring or organized crime at hand. And a lot of this is starting to trend in that direction. So curbing some of that is kind of at the crux of that bill. But in an interview with Landline Now, Valadeo said, quote, this is a very non-controversial piece of legislation. It's very bipartisan. And the more they hear about it, obviously they sign on because it's a very simple bill. It's something that most people are seeing in their districts, and they want to make sure that they're part of the solution on this one. Currently, 7 states, legislators from 7 states have joined the fight. Obviously, California, where Valadeo is from, but also Illinois, Texas, Minnesota, Florida, Virginia, Mississippi, and Nevada. And interesting to note, too, out of those states, when you look at the top 3, California, Illinois, and Texas, over the last 2 years, those have been the top 3 states for cargo theft in our country.
Yeah.
And so for them to jump on early is important, but to continue to, try to, build something and give, carriers a little bit of a sense of, hey, we can kind of work together and try to solve some of this problem. I don't think it's going to be, ultimately what cures the ill. Obviously, you still have to go through your own protections and those sorts of things, but being able to curb some of this and get some of that organized crime out of it, that element is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to, compliment, the thieves in any way by this much, but there are some sophisticated operations on that side.
Smart.
So I'm saying, like, you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to put a lock on something and it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to kind of go above and beyond, and obviously it's been shown by the reporting that's been done and just the numbers, how they're increasing. So this is kind of the type of thing that probably does need to be put in place.
Sure.
All right, well, we got to cover both sides, obviously, right? So we are on to the raspberries. And Tyson, I want you to tell us about this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So raspberries to a truck driver who caused a major traffic headache on Interstate 64 in Virginia after accomplishing what looked to be a pretty incredible feat. So last week, images were flying around social media showing a trailer striking an overhead sign on the interstate. So you're probably wondering here, it's like, how does a trailer strike an overhead sign, which are designed to pretty much be high enough for even oversized loads to clear,
It's a pretty good clearance there, yeah.
It does, yeah. So, the trailer was standing upright at a 90-degree angle.
So just a giant L traveling down the highway.
Pretty much. Yeah,
Nice.
Right. So then you're probably now wondering, how does that happen? Like, how does, so...
You'd be correct.
Yeah, right. Because that was my first question, too. It's like, all right, I see what's happening. How did we get here? So it looks like it's a grain trailer, so you can see the open top. And so as someone on Twitter surmised, so what they think happened is, and this makes sense, is that the power takeoff was probably left in gear, which allowed the trailer to slowly rise up before eventually hitting that stop or hitting the overhead sign. So that's the one theory going out there. So what's even more perplexing is the fact that the truck driver had stopped at a way station just like less than a mile before hitting that overhead sign. So he had to
Everything
stop.
looks fine. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if he did an inspection. I'm guessing not. And if did,
Can't
it was a
imagine it
pretty
was
poor
thorough.
one. Yeah, not very thorough. So Man, yeah. So this caused traffic on I-64 to be backed up for 6 miles, and so fortunately, the trailer was empty. So if that wasn't the situation, it could have been worse. Especially like if this is like a manure situation, just dumping a whole load on the highway. That didn't happen, fortunately, and even more fortunately, no one got injured as a result of this. So, my first instinct that it was like, oh, this was a rookie mistake. You left the power take off.
Somebody new to the job didn't, cover every aspect of whatever's going on there. Yeah.
And so I was reading some local news stories, and apparently the driver is the 62-year-old man who got cited for reckless driving. So I'm guessing probably not a rookie in the industry. Could be. I don't know this guy's story, but the moral of the story here is
you're never he's a rookie at all.
You don't think so?
I don't think he is.
I think it's a safe bet.
It could be a second career. One of those type of things.
It could be.
Yeah. So
one door closes and another opens. That's what it is.
But the moral of the story is, you're never too old to do stupid stuff at work.
Amen to that.
It's kind of like you need
I get 2 in a day easily.
They need the narrator to be kind of over the, since nobody got hurt, we'll make a little light of the situation. You're probably wondering how I got in this situation, like one of those voiceover type things.
Nice freeze frame as he's hitting the sign.
Well, we talked about truckers kind of doing the right thing or giving, but in this case it was a trucking company. Ryan, why don't you tell us about this one?
I firmly believe that truckers are extremely lucky people. Basically because every month I get like 4 or 5 stories where truckers have won the lottery in some capacity, be it, scratch-off tickets, which, by the way, I have never won on a scratch-off ticket, or, they're actually winning substantial sums in the lottery. This particular guy was from Texas. He had traveled to Maryland, had purchased some Powerball tickets, wound up matching 4 of the white balls and the Powerball, and that nets you $50K, nice. Which is pretty damn impressive, right? I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. The issue was that he had already returned to Texas by the time that he figured this out. Here's a Powerball rule that I didn't know, and I don't know why I would have known this before, but if you win in a state, you have to return to the state that you purchased a ticket in to claim your prize.
That's nice. That's convenient,
isn't it? So now he has to get his ass back to Maryland to get his $50K. In what I can only describe as a total trucker move, his company actually routed him back to Maryland. Because time is money. We discussed that earlier. Right. So hey, why don't you go pick up your prize, and while you're at it, take this load for us too.
Oh, that's nice.
It was awful nice of him to do it. The other aspect of the story that I really appreciated was he was an anonymous winner, which is great in the photographic evidence because every time they present the check, they're like holding the check up over their head and it just says lucky lotto winner. But also you just know he's got family issues or random third cousins that are going to be coming up going, hey, can I get a little $20 you owe me?
Not sure if the company was named, but you might want to watch out for those coworkers at the same time here.
That's right.
All right, well, we're about out of time, but we do have time for one more rose. So Tyson, you got another interesting story. You're kind of hitting us with the good stuff here, digging deep to find these interesting roses.
Yeah, so truck driver for roses for a truck driver for turning lemons to lemonade, or in this case, eggs to, egg sandwiches. Is that
omelet? Maybe.
Yeah,
is that fair? Okay.
Omelets, yeah.
So what happened? So what happened is a receiver rejected 3 pallets of eggs that was brought in by a trucker, and the reason was wrong packaging. That was it. There was nothing wrong with the eggs. So rather than send 26,000 eggs to the dumpster, the trucker decided to give the eggs to those in need. So once again, highlighting the charitable nature of the trucking community. So, it's just one of those things, though, I understand this because it's insane how much food and other products large companies waste for, stupid, trivial reasons like, wrong packaging. So this post was on Reddit. That's where I found this. And other drivers talked about similar situations, including the rejection of a crate of Gatorade because of a small tear, 50 pounds of curly fries rejected since the corners. So anyway, truckers are seeing this, and rather than just throw them away, they're just doing what any good person would do. It's like, I'm going to give this to people who need it. So it's just, again, really cool to see.
Yeah, that's I don't have many, but that's definitely one of my pet peeves is wasting food. I don't know if you guys are in there, but when the kids aren't finishing their plate, I'm like, bro, let's go. We're not throwing that away.
Are you garbage disposal up and taking care of
That's
for
what we
him?
got the dog for, okay? So.
Well, waste not one now.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for joining us for this edition of Roses and Razzberries. For Tyson Fisher and Ryan Witkowski, I'm SJ Munoz. Again, if you have ideas for roses or raspberries, please send them to roses@landlinemag.com. Landline Now will be back after this commercial break.
Bye.